Hello! I recently asked on my Instagram if there were any particular videos you would like to see from me, and one of the requests was for an updated anticipated releases video, so books that are coming out in the second half of the year. So I've had a look and found some books that are coming out in September, October, November and December that I'm interested in, and I'm going to go ahead and share these with you. I don't know about the publication dates. That I've written down a publication date, but whether or not that is consistent across the board or whether it varies from region to region, I really don't know. I think that the ones I have are definitely right for the US. Whether or not they're right for the UK as well, I'm not sure. And I don't necessarily know a whole lot about all of these, but I have the story graph open on my phone and I have a list of all of the books that I marked as wanting to read, and I'm going to go through them with you. It's probably going to involve a lot of me reading out from my phone here. I hope that's okay with you, but here goes. The first one that I noted down is Cytonic by Brandon Sanderson. I've mentioned that before. It's coming out on the 23rd of November, book 3 in the Skyward series. I've already spoken about it, but yes, I am anticipating that one. And then the other one that I've mentioned previously is Green Rising by Lauren James. That one's coming out on the 2nd of September, and it is her environmental fantasy, and I'm really looking forward to that one too. The others are, well, there are some that I've mentioned before, but I'm going to give a bit more detail about those because I haven't kind of gone into detail on them before, I don't think. So the first one is The Devil Makes 3 by Tori Bovolino. That one comes out on the 10th of August. Basically, it follows two characters who find an ancient book in a secret tunnel underneath their school library, and they accidentally release a devil from it, and the devil wants to stay free, and to do so he is manipulating the ink in all of the library books to do his bidding, it says. So he'll murder in the stacks and he'll bleed into every inch of the characters' lives until his freedom is permanent. So these two characters have to work together to find a way to re-trap the devil, and it just sounds really fun. I think actually they're not friends, they are kind of enemies, so it's a little bit of enemies to lovers, set in a library. It just sounds super fun. Then we have Redemptor by Jordan Ifweko, which comes out on the 17th of August. This is book 2 in the Raybearer series. Might be a duology though, I'm not sure. And book 1 I really enjoyed. I read it, I think at the end of last year, or maybe I read it at the beginning of this year. Honestly, time means nothing, I don't know. But it follows Terasai. The first book, I'm not going to give you a synopsis for the second book. The first book follows Terasai from when she's a young child, and she isn't raised by her parents, she's raised by a variety of nannies and carers, and she knows her mum and she wants her mum's love, but it's really hard to come by, and then she's given a task to do that she doesn't really want to do, and she's sent off to become one of the future emperor's closest friends and allies, and she discovers a family for the first time in her life, and there's all sorts of other stuff that goes on, but I'm not going to get into that. I really liked the first book and I'm really looking forward to the sequel. And then I've got Vampires, Hearts and Other Dead Things by Margie Ferguson, and this one comes out on the 24th of August, and basically it's about Victoria and her dad, who share a love of the undead since the first vampire revealed his existence on live TV. Public fear soon drove the vampires back into hiding, yet Victoria and her father still dream about finding a vampire together. But when her dad is diagnosed with terminal cancer, it's clear that's not going to happen. Instead, Victoria vows to find a vampire herself so that she can become one and then save her father. So she goes off in search of a vampire. She finds one, but in order to convince him to to turn her into a vampire, she has to complete a load of challenges to convince this vampire that she loves life enough to live forever. So it just sounds really fun, obviously apart from the terminal cancer thing. Then I have The Girls Are Never Gone by Sarah Glenn Marsh. This one comes out on the 7th of September. Dare Chase doesn't believe in ghosts. Privately, she's a supernatural skeptic, but publicly she's keeping her doubts to herself because she's the voice of Attachments, her brand new paranormal investigation podcast, and she needs her ghost-loving listeners to choose in. That's what brings her to Arrington Estate. 30 years ago, teenager Atheline Bell drowned in Arrington's Lake, and legend says her spirit haunts the estate. Dare is more interested in the suspicious circumstances surrounding her death, circumstances that she believes point to a living culprit, not the supernatural. Still, she's vowed to keep an open mind as she investigates, even if she's pretty sure what she'll find. And you know me, I love paranormal ghost story type books, so that plus a little bit of murder mystery, it just sounds really interesting. So on the list, the next one is The Hawthorne Legacy by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is a sequel also. It comes out on the 7th of September as well. It is the sequel to the Inheritance games, which I also read either end of last year or beginning of this year. It follows Avery, who is mysteriously left a billionaire's fortune but has no idea why. She didn't know him, wasn't related to him, who knows. And not only that, but he disinherited basically his whole family in favour of her. And yeah, I won't say anything else, but it was super fun and I'm really interested to see what's going to happen in the sequel. Then we have Gutter Mage by J.S. Kelly. This one comes out on the 21st of September. Sorry if I keep looking down here, it's got my list of dates just there. That's the only thing about the story graph, is it doesn't list the specific dates, so I can't look at my phone to get this one. This one says, in a kingdom where magic fuels everything from street lamps to horseless carriages, the mage guilds of Penador wield power equal to the king himself. So when Lord Edmund's infant son is kidnapped by the ruthless Aleth Guild, he turns to the one person who's feared by even the most magically adept, Rosalind Featherstone, aka the Gutter Mage. But as Ros delves into the circumstances behind the child's disappearance, she uncovers an old enemy from her traumatic past and a long brewing plot that could lead to the death of countless innocents, as well as the complete collapse of Penadorian society itself. I just liked the sound of the magic system in this one. And honestly, that's kind of enough for me with a fantasy story. If you've got an interesting magic system, then I'm kind of interested in reading you. Then we have Iron Widow by Zoran J. Zhao, which comes out on the 21st of September as well. And this one sounds kind of historical, science fiction, maybe a little bit of fantasy. It sounds really interesting. So the boys of Huxia dream of pairing up with girls to pilot chrysalises, giant transforming robots that can battle the mecha aliens that lurk beyond the Great Wall. It doesn't matter that the girls often die from the mental strain. When 18-year-old Zetian offers herself up as a concubine pilot, it's to assassinate the ace male pilot responsible for her sister's death, but she gets her vengeance in a way nobody expected. She kills him through the psychic link between pilots and emerges from the cockpit unscathed. She is labelled an Iron Widow, a much feared and much silenced kind of female pilot who can sacrifice boys to power up chrysalises instead. To tame her unnerving yet invaluable mental strength, she is paired up with Li Shimin, the strongest and most controversial male pilot in Huxia. But now that Zeishan has had a taste of power, she will not cower so easily. She will miss no opportunity to leverage their combined might and infamy to survive attempt after attempt on her life until she can figure out exactly why the pilot system works in its misogynist way and stop more girls from being sacrificed. So that one just sounds super, super unique and interesting. Definitely want to check that one out. The next one I have mentioned before is Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. It comes out on also the 21st of September, big day for publishing apparently, and it basically follows somebody who is dying and is spending their last moments before death with kind of the ferryman, as it were, and I'm expecting it to be whimsical like House in the Cerulean Sea was, so looking forward to that one. Then we have Light from Uncommon Stars by Rika Aoki, which comes out on the 28th of September, and it says Good Omens meets The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, which is what originally drew me in because I absolutely love A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, one of my favourites for sure. This one says, Shizuka Satomi made a deal with the devil. To escape damnation, she must entice 7 other violin prodigies to trade their souls for success. She has already delivered 6. When Katrina Nguyen, a young transgender runaway, catches Shizuka's ear with her wild talent, Shizuka can almost feel the curse lifting. She's found her final candidate, but in a donut shop off a bustling highway in the San Gabriel Valley, Shizuka meets Lan Tran, retired starship captain, interstellar refugee and mother of 4. Shizuka doesn't have time for crushes or coffee dates, what with her very soul on the line, but Lan's kind smile and eyes like stars might just redefine a soul's worth, and maybe something as small as a warm donut is powerful enough to break a curse as vast as the California coastline. As the lives of these 3 women become entangled by chance and fate, a story of magic, identity, curses and hope begins, and a family worth crossing the universe for is found. So it sounds lovely. I will need some donuts while I read it, and I'm really looking forward to it. It sounds great. It sounds so different, and I really, really like that. Then we have The Death of Jane Lawrence by Caitlin Starling. This one comes out on the 5th of October. Jane Shoringfield sees the world in numbers, patterns and logical projections, and by her math she needs one thing above all else, a husband who wants a marriage of convenience. At the top of her list is Augustine Lawrence, a young reclusive doctor. He agrees to her proposal with only one requirement. She must never visit Lindridge Hall, his ancestral crumbling house several miles out of town. He is compelled to return there each time the sun sets, despite night calls and ailing patients, but Jane must never accompany him. He says it's just because of disrepair brought on by a country doctor's salary, but on their wedding night an accident brings her to his door past sundown, and she finds him changed. Gone is the bold, courageous surgeon, and in his place is a confused, fearful man. By morning, Augustine is himself again, but something is deeply wrong at Lindridge Hall. At night, strange figures stalk the halls, and Jane catches glimpses of a beautiful red-eyed woman in the mirrors and windows of the house. Augustine claims she was a patient of his who died 2 years before, but unexpected house guests tell a different story. Her name was Elodie Lawrence, and Augustine believes he killed her. Soon, Jane is fighting for her sanity and her life, drawn into a world of secret societies, theoretical mathematics, impossible magic, and rituals gone wrong. And now that the secrets of Lindridge Hall have met her, they're not about to let her go. And I think I read somewhere that this is kind of loosely based on Jane Eyre, which is one of my favourite classics ever, so very, very interested in that one. Then Vespertine by Margaret Rogerson. I've read her 2 other books. I really liked An Enchantment of Ravens, wasn't so keen on Sorcery of Thorns. This one comes out on the 5th of October, and it says, the dead of Lorraine do not rest. Artemisia is training to be a grey sister, a nun who cleanses the bodies of the deceased so that their souls can pass on. Otherwise they will rise as spirits with a ravenous hunger for the living. She would rather deal with the dead than the living, who trade whispers about her scarred hands and troubled past. When her convent is attacked by possessed soldiers, Artemisia defends it by awakening an ancient spirit bound to a saint's relic. It is a revenant, a malevolent being that threatens to possess her the moment she drops her guard. Wielding its extraordinary power almost consumes her, but death has come to L'Oreal, and only a Vespertine, a priestess trained to wield a high relic, has any chance of stopping it. With all knowledge of Vespertine's lost to time, Artemisia turns to the last remaining expert for help. the Revenant itself. As she unravels a sinister mystery of saints, secrets and dark magic, her bond with the Revenant grows, and when a hidden evil begins to surface, she discovers that facing this enemy might require her to betray everything she has been taught to believe if the Revenant doesn't betray her first. So it sounds quite a lot darker than her other books, but I did as I mentioned, I liked An Enchantment of Ravens, so we'll see how I get on with this one. Next up we have The Keeper of Night by Kylie Lee Baker. This one comes out on the 12th of October. Death is her destiny. Half British Reaper, half Japanese Shinigami, Ren Scarborough has been collecting souls in the London streets for centuries. Expected to obey the harsh hierarchy of the Reapers who despise her, Ren conceals her emotions and avoids her tormentors as best she can. When her failure to control her Shinigami abilities drives Ren out of London, she flees to Japan to seek the acceptance she's never got from her fellow Reapers. Accompanied by her young brother, the only being on Earth to care for her, Ren enters the Japanese underworld to serve the goddess of death, only to learn that here too she must prove herself worthy. Determined to earn respect, Ren accepts an impossible task: find and eliminate 3 dangerous yokai demons, and learns how far she'll go to claim her place at death's side. And I just love books that personify death. I don't know what it is, it's just a trope that I really like, so that one went on the list for sure. Next up we have City of Shattered Light by Claire Wynne. This one comes out on the 19th of October. As darkness closes in on the City of Shattered Light, an heiress and an outlaw must decide whether to fend for themselves or fight for each other. An heiress to a powerful tech empire, 17-year-old Asa Almeida strives to prove she's more than her manipulative father's shadow. But when he uploads her rebellious sister's mind to an experimental brain, Asa will do anything to save her sister from reprogramming, including fleeing her predetermined future with her sister's digitized mind in tow. With a bounty on her head and a rogue AI hunting her, Asa's getaway ship crash lands in the worst possible place, the neon-drenched outlaw paradise, Requiem. Gunslinging smuggler Riven Hawthorne is determined to claw her way up Requiem's underworld hierarchy. A runaway rich girl is exactly the bounty Riven needs, until a nasty computer virus spreads in Asa's wake, causing a citywide blackout and tech quarantine. To get the payout for Asa and save Requiem from the monster in its circuits, Riven must team up with her captive. Riven breaks skulls the way Asa breaks circuits, but their opponent is unlike anything they've ever seen. The AI exploits of the girl's darkest memories and deepest secrets threaten to shatter the fragile alliance they're both depending on. As one of Requiem's 154-hour nights grows darker, the girls must decide whether to fend for themselves or fight for each other before Riven's city and Asa's sister are snuffed out forever. Which just sounds like a lot of fun and a little bit wild, which I'm not opposed to. I should mention, I'm clearly not going to manage to read all of these when they come out. They're just on my radar, they're just ones that I'm interested in picking up at some point, because this is a lot, and I'm not even done yet. Next up we have A Marvellous Light by Freya Mask, I think. This one comes out on the 2nd of November. Robin Blythe has more than enough bother in his life. He's struggling to be a good older brother, a responsible employer, and the harried baronet of a seat gutted by his late parents' excesses. When an administrative mistake sees him named the civil service liaison to a hidden magical society, he discovers what's been operating beneath the unextraordinary reality he's always known. Now Robin must contend with the beauty and danger of magic, an excruciating deadly curse, and the alarming visions of the future that come with it. Not to mention Edwin Corsi, his cold and prickly counterpart in the magical bureaucracy, who clearly wishes Robin were anyone and anywhere else. Robin's predecessor has disappeared, and the mystery of what happened to him reveals unsettling truths about the very oldest stories they've been told about the land they live on and what binds it. Thrown together and facing unexpected dangers, Robin and Edwin discover a plot that threatens every magician in the British Isles, and a secret that more than one person has already died to keep, which really gives me Winter's Orbit vibes, which I loved. so I had to put it on the list. Then I have All of Us Villains by Christine Lynn Herman and Amanda Foody. This one comes out on the 9th of November, and the tagline says, "You fell in love with the victors of the Hunger Games, now prepare to meet the villains of the Bloody Veil," which of course caught my attention. The blood moon rises, the blood veil falls, the tournament begins. Every generation at the coming of the blood moon, 7 families in the remote city of Ilvanath each name a champion to compete in a tournament to the death. The prize? Exclusive control over a secret wellspring of high magic, the most powerful resource in the world, one thought long depleted. This year, thanks to a salacious tell-all book, the 7 champions are thrust into worldwide spotlight, granting each of them new information, new means to win, and most importantly, a choice: accept their own fate or rewrite their story. But this is a story that must be penned in blood. And I love a competition trope, especially if it's brutal. So if it's being compared to the Hunger Games and it's a tournament, as long as it's brutal, there's a very good chance I'll like it. Next up we have Dreams Lie Beneath by Rebecca Ross. This one comes out on the 2nd of November. There's not much information about this one on the story graph at all, but it does say an aspiring magician dons an enchanted disguise in order to take revenge on her rival, only to discover they are both entangled in a dangerous game of court intrigue, pitched as the Night Circus meets the Cruel Prince. And competition-esque, dangerous game, court intrigue, yes. Then we have Noor by Nnedi Okorafor. I haven't read anything by this author before, but I've heard very, very good things. This one comes out on the 9th of November, and it says, Anwuli Okwudili prefers to be called AO. To her, these initials have always stood for artificial organism. AO has never really felt natural, and that's putting it lightly. Her parents spent most of the days before she was born praying for her peaceful passing, because even in utero she was wrong. But she lived. Then came the car accident later that crippled her even further. Yet instead of viewing her strange body the way the world views it, as freakish, unnatural, even the work of the devil, AO embraces all that she is. A woman with a ton of major and necessary body augmentations, and then one day she goes to her local market and everything goes wrong. Once on the run, she meets a Fulani herdsman named DNA, and the race against time across the deserts of northern Nigeria begins. In a world where all things are streamed, everyone is watching the reckoning of the murderess and the terrorist, and the saga of the wicked woman and madman unfold. This fast-paced, relentless journey of tribe, destiny, body, and the wonderland of technology revels in the fact that the future sometimes isn't so predictable. Expect the unaccepted, which also sounds great. Then we have The Beholden by Cassandra Rose Clark. This one comes out on the 9th of November as well. Orphaned as a young woman, Celestia and Izara de Milana find themselves land-rich but destitute, with only a failing rainforest acreage, Celestia's perfect manners and Izara's nascent magic to their aristocratic names. With the last of their money running out, they enact a dangerous plan. Using a spell she doesn't fully understand, Izara summons the Lady of the Seraphine and demands a favour. A husband for Celestia, one rich enough to enable the De Melina sisters to keep their land, but a favour from the river goddess always comes at a cost. Now, 5 years later, rumours of war and disease are spreading. Celestia's husband has been called away on a secret mission for the Emperor, and the Lady of the Seraphine is back to collect her due. Izara will be forced to leave the academy where she has been studying to become a mage. Celestia will be pulled from her now flourishing farm while newly pregnant with her first child. Together, they must repay their debt to the Lady, embarking on a mission that will put them on a collision course with Celestia's husband, the Emperor, and a god even more powerful than the Lady of Seraphine. Gorgeous, compelling, and utterly captivating, The Beholden follows Celestia and Izara as they journey from the lush rainforest to a frozen desert on an impossible quest to find a god who doesn't want to be found and prevent the end of the world. And that one I've put on the list just because I like the sound of the setting. Sometimes I will read a book just if it has a really, really interesting setting. Like, for example, Queen of Blood. I picked that up initially, partly because the premise sounded interesting, but mostly because I liked the sound of the setting, and also because I like Sarah Beth Durst. You know. Next up, The Forgotten Memories of Vera Glass by Anna Primaza. This one comes out on also the 9th of November. Lots of books coming out on the 9th of November. Description of this one is very short. It just says, when people she loves and all memory of them start disappearing from teenager Vera's life, leaving behind only a haunting sorrow, she and her best friend set out to solve a mystery they can't remember. I stopped recording, so I don't know how much of that I caught. So the next one is Within These Wicked Walls, which also comes out on the 9th of November. It's by Lauren Blackwood, and it's actually this one that is the Jane Eyre retelling. It says Kirsten White meets Tomi Adeyemi in this Ethiopian-inspired debut fantasy retelling of Jane Eyre. Andromeda is a Daterra, an exorcist hired to cleanse households of the evil eye. When a handsome young heir named Magnus Rochester reaches out to hire her, Andromeda quickly realises this is a job like no other, with horrifying manifestations at every turn, and that Magnus is hiding far more than she has been trained for. Death is the most likely outcome if she stays, but leaving Magnus to live out his curse alone isn't an option. Evil may roam the castle's halls, but so does a burning desire. And as I mentioned earlier, Jane Eyre is my favourite classic, so I want to read it. And then the last one is A History of Wild Places by Shay Earnshaw. This one comes out on the 7th of December, and it says, Travis Wren has an unusual talent for locating missing people. Hired by families as a last resort, he requires only a single object to find the person who has vanished. When he takes on the case of Maggie St. James, a well-known author of dark, macabre children's books, he's led to a place many believe to be only a legend. Called Pastoral, this reclusive community was founded in 1970s by like-minded people searching for a simpler way of life. By all accounts, the commune shouldn't exist anymore, and soon after Travis stumbles upon it, he disappears, just like Maggie St. James. Years later, Theo, a lifelong member of Pastoral, discovers Travis's abandoned truck beyond the border of the community. No one is allowed in or out, not when there's a risk of bringing a disease, rot, into Pastoral. Unravelling the mystery of what happened reveals secrets that Theo, his wife Carla and his sister Bea keep from one another, secrets that prove their perfect isolated world isn't as safe as they believed, and that darkness takes many forms. Hauntingly beautiful, hypnotic and bewitching, A History of Wild Places is a story about fairy tales, our fear of the dark, and losing yourself within the wilderness of your mind, which sounds creepy and fun. It's kind of a shame it's coming out in December because it doesn't really feel like a December kind of book, but it does sound pretty good. So that was a very, very long list of anticipated releases, but hopefully you have found something that has piqued your interest and added it to your own TBR. Let me know if that is the case, and if there are any of these that you're desperate to hear me review for you, let me know that as well and I will prioritise them. Don't forget to check out Ponderful Books down in the description. And that's it for this one. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video and want to see more like this from me, then do think about hitting that subscribe button, and I hope to see you again soon. Thanks. Bye.